Very good morning to all our viewers today, or good afternoon. We have with us a person who has managed to balance spiritual life as well as living in capitalist country. He has professionally worked with in pertinent projects for accelerating sustainable production in automobiles industry and electronics sector with WEF. He has also worked in climate tech and EdTech startups and strategized investments in technology for C-suite family offices, corporate venture funds, and presently working in the healthcare and life sciences enterprises. He's also associated with Heartfulness and Heartful Campus Initiative for forest conservation and is leading global partnerships at Heartfulness Institute in the US. Let us all welcome Mr. Aditya Barrela. Very warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much, Harsha, and great to be talking to you. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you with us today. You are working in a very niche sector right now, and you worked in so many industries till date. Would you like to first share with us what has been your journey and what led you to move towards associating yourself with the Heartfulness Institute and bent towards the spirituality?
Absolutely, Harsha. So I did my civil engineering and then got an MBA later into my career. Uh, you know, Climate and the planet has been really close to my heart. Even before my education, I think growing up in India, we're taught to respect the planet like in any other culture. We're taught to. I used to grow my own garden when I was as small as a third grade kid. So right from the get-go, I had this real passion for creating impact. But later on, in as I began my career, I worked in Europe in the policy space in the development sector, and then came back to India and continued to work in the policy space, mostly into investment promotion, bringing investments into India. And what I realized is that policy is a great lever to influence impact and to create that sustainable development that we're all aspiring for. But when you think about execution of the policy, and that's where people, private sector, industries, and technology come into play. So I got really curious into that area, and education is something that is so fundamental to creating people change, to affecting people change, and that's where I spent about 3 years in the education sector as an entrepreneur as well. And before coming back to the corporate, looking at technology now for the past 3 years. So that has been my journey across like about 20. I've had the chance to travel about 20 countries and like learn a lot about the commonality of issues that are there across cultures, across economies, businesses, but also the uniqueness about how you can solve them and execute on some of these issues, and most importantly to scale impact, which has been something of a learning curve for me, and I'm still learning about uh, how do we also scale impact, right? So yeah, right now I work in with a large IT services firm, multinational firm, where a lot of focuses on again leveraging technology to create impact at scale, and that is something I find very fulfilling. To the last point you mentioned about heartfulness, it's a meditation practice. That's how it began for me. Um, and growing up across cultures, we're always told, right, follow your heart, live, wear your heart on your sleeve, and things like that. But what does that really mean tangibly, right? how do you really follow your heart? How do you access the so-called source of intuition, creativity, so that you can connect, relate, and be more effective in your life, right? And also how to process your emotions, how to be emotionally literate, let alone intelligent, right? So these are certain questions that luckily I asked myself early on into my career. And I realized that a meditation practice is sort of a foundational thing to my day. In fact, I was just meditating before this call, this talk, as I begin my Monday. So it's about 8 years since I've been practicing heartfulness, and then I've been benefited so much by this simple, wonderful practice that I've been trying to volunteer with heartfulness across projects, and so that's been my weekends over the past 8 years. Yeah.
That's how lovely and inspiring. Now, how does Heartfulness Institute support in mental health, as you've experienced?
So mental health is I'm glad that after the pandemic, a lot of focus, I'm a millennial and there's also like Gen Z, a lot of people are focusing and being conscious about mental health. So I think that's phenomenal because I haven't really seen that interest growing up. Nobody cared about mental health, especially in the developing world, right? But when you think about it, right, when you think about one experiment in that's famous in psychology, and I like to geek about these things, right? Is the Milgram experiment. I don't know if you've heard of this. This psychologist, Milgram, what he does is he puts people in a sort of a box chamber in a room, and he tells them to do nothing, and then there's a little button there that if they press, they can give themselves an electric shock, right? And I think 90% of the people or something like that, almost always decide to shock themselves out of boredom, right? So one of the while for me the mental health is something so important for creativity and so many wonderful things like inspired, being inspired, right? Living and showing up with your 300% every day, right? And so while that is really important, I also think mental health is like a basic thing that a lot of people lack because we're in a hyper addictive reality today, and we're trained to not handle our boredom, right? We just can't take boredom, right? You can't sit alone by yourself with your own thoughts, and that's such a scary thing for so many people, and I think if you rather shock yourself than sit alone with your own thoughts, but I think mental health is WHO also talks about it. They said that that is the pandemic of the 21st century before COVID became a pandemic, right? So there's a silent crisis of mental health that has been coming up, and people are not noticing it. And I think finally it is getting the attention it deserves. But more importantly, at Heartfulness Institute, what I've learned from um, my teacher Daji, who is the current president of Heartfulness Institute, is that he puts it wonderfully, right? He puts it that meditation is like a vaccine for mental health, right? So rather than like crossing the bridge of going towards mentally being unhealthy, how can you be preventative about it? How can you, and it's not just meditation definitely can be that kind of a vaccine, as he says, but also the your relationship to yourself, right? How do you take care of yourself? How do you treat yourself? And what do you do for your how do you invest in your own personal growth and development, right? That's also very important. And meditation is, I think, a super thing there. But also the community around you, who you associate with, and so the whole thing, I think, is so important towards taking a preventative approach, because we are totally bombarded with a lot of unhealthy ways to deal with our emotions, and just so easy accessible to everybody, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So does it have some kind of a course, content, curriculum, workshops? How does it bring the awareness among people?
Yeah. No, I'm glad you asked. So Heartfulness Institute is a non-profit, right? So most of everything that Heartfulness does is free of cost. And there are programs and conferences where you probably have to pay for the lodging or logistics, but really the meditation itself, it's about 75 years old of history, probably a couple of million people around the world who practice this on a daily basis. You would see from farmers in India to CEOs in boardrooms trying heartfulness. It's so simple. It's profound. So there are courses that you can take on heartfulness learning. Or if you just search for heartfulness.org/learning, you will find courses. There's also an app, a mobile app on app, both platforms that you can download and you can use, and that's free of cost, and that has even these little prompts to introduce you to this practice of meditation. There's much more than meditation. There are tools that you can use to detoxify your mind, to sleep better, to reflect. There are reflection aids. There are things that are there that really kind of make you mentally healthy person. And so, yeah, I think that's one thing. But there are also the beauty of heartfulness and why I really volunteered, bringing my EdTech experience into the picture is that, especially in India, where we do a lot of work in terms of the impact, and now we're bringing it to the US. We see that the youth are, the Gen Z, especially, or millennials, there's a need for life skills. There's a need for what we call 21st century skills, which are not really taught as part of their formal traditional education system, right? These are essential skill sets. And if you're really lucky, you have great parents who covered all these, areas. But for you, but 90%, I think, how many youth today do you think are goal oriented, can manage their own emotions, can uh, can be resilient in face of crisis, right? Can be perseverant in face of adversity, right? So these are things that you need a muscle to develop, like much like going to the gym, right? So you need like an emotional muscle almost, right? To really face with life's difficulty, and you can't just read a book or do. I mean, reading books, they help, but if you invest time in reflecting, meditating, that's what our courses are, right? So in Heartfulness, the beauty of the courses that we design, which are now millions of people have been benefited by these courses in India for sure. And these are all free of cost, run by volunteers. Thousands of volunteers run this. Is that there's there's knowledge, but there's also practice. There's an experiential component in the course. There's about 20-30 minutes of guided journaling. There's relaxation. There's meditation. There's a little bit of breathing and breathing exercises. So stuff like that make it a whole different. Yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Great. If you can, what is the name of the app that they have?
The app is Heartfulness, like mindfulness, heartfulness,
Okay.
right? Yeah.
Okay, great. And now, what is an institute which is so strongly promoting meditation practices doing with forests or education? So you're also associated in that. So what is the intervention all about?
Yeah, I think when you see that uh, we're so the Heartfulness Institute in its latest headquarters in Hyderabad, India, right, has this beautiful place which is a must visit place for anybody, right? Once in a lifetime kind of a thing, right? If you're lucky like me, you visit several times and you get almost addicted to it, is actually a green paradise, right? So this place has um, about nearly 500,000 trees that have been planted in 1,500 acres of space. Uh, and this place was barren land. This place was completely uh, really a terrible climate right before the whole project started in 2017. And I was witness to that. That's when I started my meditation journey, and this place was completely a barren land. Uh, there's this really deep connection between human beings and nature. Uh, there's also this real connection between mental health and your time outdoors, your time in the sun, your time with trees. If you are someone who's hiked a lot or spent time in nature, grew up spending time in nature, you understand what I'm talking about, right? Uh, you will when you're hiking, you will not be tempted to watch. Nobody, I don't think, right, watches Netflix or something, right? When you are in literally in front of, let's say, these beautiful mountains in the Himalayas, or you're in front of the beach in the West Coast in Bay Area. So I think these are some things that are so essential for the human experience, but we've somehow lost our connection with that. And the Heartfulness Institute, I think consciously decided that, identified that there's this crisis, especially in some countries like India, where nature is depleting, right? And needs to be protected, needs to be restored, and if possible, in even economical ways. And that's where the Forest by Heartfulness Institute started. And at the heart of it, there are several teams of experts, scientists, botanists, retired forest officers, who policymakers who came together and said that, there are these red listed species or endangered species in India. And if we can, rescue them and revive them with stuff like tissue culture based, cryogenic stem cell based tea propagation, you can actually bring them out of extinction, or out of near extinction. You cannot bring them out of extinction, but there are trees in the headquarters of Heartfulness where only 20 or 15 individuals are alive on the entire planet, and literally they're being saved there. So I think that's how it started. Now it's all over India. In some parts of South America, we are also trying to explore, restoring endangered, restoring ecologically damaged, spaces, lands. So that's something that I've been involved in, and my skills are basically, sales, strategy, business development, partnership development. This is something what I've learned. So I thought, as a volunteer, what can I do, and how can I bring my skill set to the table? And I thought that's one of the ways that it's all a community-driven initiative. We are several hundreds of volunteers who bring our own skill sets and try to make the world a better place in our own little ways. Yeah.
Mhm. And what kind of global partnerships are you looking to build
Yeah.
for the coming
So
5 years?
great. The partnerships that we have already built are with several other NGOs, with think tanks, with local governments, or even the national government. For example, Prime Minister Modi had not only visited us twice in terms of the Heartfulness headquarters, but also conferred the Padma Bhushan on Daji, the president of Heartfulness Institute. With Commonwealth, we've worked with the Commonwealth in terms of, the Secretary General, Patricia Scotland, who's been there, multiple times, and, got inspired, impressed by her, herself, and decided to partner across some of our education and other impact initiatives. We also are a big proponent of yoga. So with UNESCO. I think this year, June, for the Yoga Day, what we did was we actually took over the headquarters of UNESCO in Paris, and really like the whole headquarters was temporarily converted into a yoga museum, telling the story of yoga, because a lot of people think yoga is just about the physical yoga, but it's also about the mental yoga, and meditation is actually a really essential part of core part of yoga. And so we kind of told that story and got a lot of things. But I think over the long run, we want to continue partnering with corporates, education institutions, nonprofits. It really takes a lot of like-minded, good people, good organizations to come together to make something meaningful happen. Oftentimes, we see institutions which are like nonprofits or impact institutions work in silos. Almost like even compete with other social enterprises or social institutions. And I think this is like totally shocking, in an age where, you know, terrorists collaborate, right? It's a strong example, but they collaborate all the time. Or if you see corporates, they collaborate, right? They're literally sharing data, and maybe there's some transactions, but I think good organizations, people who want to do serious impact, they are somehow shy in coming together and saying that, what do you need? What are you trying to do? And how can we really help you, right? How can we help each other out? I think that is so in the next 5 years, it's great to have these fancy collaborations with large multilateral organizations or corporates, but I would also really look for grassroots organizations, literally collaborating with my local library, and just something that even three people that want to come and volunteer with us, that's such a fun, fantastic thing, so we're open to all kinds of collaboration. Yeah.
Excellent. That's very impressive, and we have some of our participants over here. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I see Lorraine and Arpan. Hello.
Yeah. So Aditya, it has been wonderful talking to you and listening to you and the inspiration that you bring along with you. Do you want to have 1 minute of meditation since we still have 3 minutes to go during the show?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And this is something you can try. You can try by yourself. You can try with the app, but
Any
the
guidance
simple thing
on
in
meditating?
yeah,
Yeah.
with Heartfulness, the simple thing that you can do is simply connect with you can 1 minute is too small. If you give me another opportunity, we can do a 30-minute guided one. That would be nice. But yeah, you can
Uh,
gently and slowly close your eyes. I'll guide you over 3 minutes, and take a deep breath. Inhale, exhale, let go. So meditation is not fighting your thoughts or concentration. Meditation is actually about thinking continuously about one thing, allowing your thoughts to come, which are totally natural. So I invite you to connect with the idea that there is a source of love and light in your heart, and try to remain immersed or get absorbed in this love and light in your heart, exactly where your heart's beating. Just try to connect to that place. If thoughts come, you can simply ignore them and just connect, remain connected, and remind yourself that you're meditating. All right. That, I think my 1 minute is up, so we will
Yeah.
try to
Thank
find.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe
So
we'll organize something separately for this.
let us plan for that, Harsha. I'd love to definitely share this wonderful,
Yes. Yes,
you
yes.
know,
Let us discuss
gift of
more
meditation.
and
Yeah, looking
yeah, yeah.
forward. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you for your time and
Thank you
love.
so much
Yeah.
for taking us through.
Yeah, absolutely. And really glad to be part of the IICSR community. What you're doing is fantastic. So more power to you. Thank you.
Thank you so very much,